When my daughter looked me in the eyes and told me to leave, told me that I was nothing but a burden after she inherited $33 million, it felt like my entire soul cracked into pieces. I had carried her inside me, raised her with love, sacrificed everything so she could have the life she wanted, and now she was standing in the home I had built with my late husband, telling me there was no room for me anymore. "Mom," she said, her voice sharp, almost rehearsed, "you should just find somewhere else to die. You don't belong here anymore." Those words cut deeper than any knife ever could. My chest tightened, my legs shook, and for a moment, I thought I might collapse right there on the marble floor. That house, every corner of it carried memories of my husband George. The laughter of our family dinners, the holidays when I stayed up all night cooking, the quiet evenings when George would sit in his armchair and hold my hand. And now, my own daughter, the child we had raised together, was throwing me out as if I were a stranger. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and ask her how she could be so cruel. But instead, I packed my bags in silence. A few clothes, a photograph of George, and the old rosary my mother had given me when I was a girl. That was all I could carry. I walked past her without a word, past the grand staircase and the glittering chandelier, past the walls that once echoed with joy, and I stepped out into the cold night air. I sat on the curb with my suitcase, staring at the sky, and I wondered how it had come to this. I had lost George, and now I was losing Victoria too. I remembered when she was little, how she used to climb into my bed when thunderstorms scared her. She would curl against me, whispering, "Don't leave me, Mommy." And yet here I was, abandoned by the very child I had once promised never to leave. She didn't even come out to see me off. The door shut behind me with a hollow slam, and I was alone. For the next few days, I wandered. I stayed in a cheap motel, the kind where the wallpaper peeled from the walls and the bedspread smelled faintly of mold. I counted the little money I had left, $200, the only thing Victoria had given me before she threw me out. $200 to survive after a lifetime of loyalty and love. I bought instant noodles, bottled water, and tried to stretch what I had, but my heart ached more than my stomach. I kept replaying her words in my mind. Find somewhere else to die. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I had nothing left to live for. George was gone, Victoria didn't want me, and I was an old woman with no one left in the world. But grief has a way of transforming into something else when the pain becomes unbearable. Somewhere in that loneliness, a spark of suspicion began to flicker. George would never have left me with nothing. He had been a good man, a loving husband, and he always promised that I would be taken care of. So why did Victoria inherit everything? Why was I left with scraps? I couldn't shake the thought, and the more I turned it over in my mind, the more certain I became something wasn't right. On the third day after I was thrown out, I gathered what little courage I had left and walked into the office of George's old lawyer, Mr. Hamilton. My hands trembled as I pushed open the heavy wooden door, and the receptionist gave me a polite smile before leading me inside. When Mr. Hamilton saw me, his eyes widened with pity. "Helen," he said softly, "I'm so sorry for your loss." I nodded, my throat tight. "I need to know the truth," I whispered, "about George's will, about what he left behind." He studied me for a long moment, then sighed, reaching into a drawer. "I wondered when you might come." When he placed the papers in front of me, my heart nearly stopped. The will was clear. George had left the majority of his estate to me, 70% of everything, including the house, the business shares, the savings. Victoria's inheritance was large, yes, but it was conditional. She would only receive her portion if she respected me, cared for me, and maintained the values George held dear. I stared at the words until they blurred with tears. Then why did she tell me I got nothing? Mr. Hamilton leaned forward. "Because she lied, Helen. She intercepted the documents, convinced you of a false story. She thought you wouldn't question it. She counted on your grief to blind you." My stomach twisted. Betrayal on top of betrayal. My own daughter had manipulated me, stolen from me, and cast me aside like garbage. In that moment, my sorrow hardened into something else, resolve. Victoria thought I was weak, thought I would disappear quietly into the shadows. But she was wrong. I wasn't dead yet. and she was about to learn that she had underestimated me. I walked out of that office with a real will in my hand and a fire burning in my chest. I didn't know exactly how I would fight back, but I knew this. Victoria was not going to get away with what she had done. And 3 days after she threw me out, she would come crawling back, begging for the very help she had once denied me. When I stepped out of Mr. Hamilton's office that day, clutching George's real will in my trembling hands, I felt like I was holding both a weapon and a shield. It was proof that my husband hadn't forgotten me, that he hadn't abandoned me. Proof that my daughter, my own flesh and blood, had lied. The city streets seemed different as I walked back to my motel. People rushed by, cars honked, neon signs flickered above storefronts, but all I could think about was Victoria. My daughter, who used to curl her small fingers around mine, had twisted into someone I barely recognized. $33 million had turned her heart to stone. Or maybe it had only revealed what was already there. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the creaky motel bed, rereading the will over and over. Every word sank into me like iron. I thought of George, his gentle smile, his quiet strength, and I realized something that made my chest ache. He must have known. He must have seen the greed growing in Victoria, the selfishness that she tried to hide from me. That's why he placed those conditions in his will. He wanted to protect me, even from our own daughter. By morning, my sorrow had become steel. I wasn't just a grieving widow anymore. I was a woman with nothing left to lose, and that made me dangerous. The first step was gathering proof. Mr. Hamilton advised me to be cautious. Victoria was smart, manipulative, and ruthless. If I confronted her too soon, she would deny everything and try to bury me. So, I agreed to work quietly. Hamilton connected me with a private investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla, who specialized in uncovering fraud. Carla followed Victoria for days. She tracked her spending, her meetings, her bank accounts, and what she uncovered shocked even me. Victoria hadn't just lied about the will. She had already started draining accounts, moving money offshore, even selling pieces of George's business that she had no right to touch. She was reckless, burning through millions as though the well would never run dry. I remember the moment Carla slid the evidence across the motel table to me. Your daughter is committing fraud, Mrs. Jennings. She's on a path that ends in prison if someone doesn't stop her. My hand shook as I flipped through the photos, the bank statements, the documents. Each page was another knife to the heart. But behind the pain, a strange satisfaction grew. Victoria thought she was untouchable. She thought her mother was weak, powerless, disposable. She had no idea that I now held the power to destroy her empire with a single signature. When I finally decided to confront her, it wasn't out of rage. It was out of clarity. She needed to see that I wasn't afraid anymore. I walked up the long driveway of the mansion we once shared. The gates opened as if mocking me, welcoming the prodigal daughter's mother back into the kingdom she had been exiled from. My suitcase dragged behind me, and my heart pounded with every step toward the grand front doors. Victoria opened the door herself, and for a moment, she looked startled to see me standing there. But then her lips curled into a smirk. Oh, so the homeless widow returns. What is it, Mom? Need more charity money for your little motel? I steadied my voice. I came to return something, I said, pulling the will from my bag and holding it out. The truth. Her smile faltered. She snatched the papers from my hand, scanning them quickly, and I watched as the color drained from her face. This is fake, she stammered. You probably forged it. Do you think anyone will believe you? I don't need them to believe me, I said quietly. The bank already does. The lawyer does. And the investigator who's been watching your every move? She does too. Her eyes widened. For the first time in weeks, I saw fear in them. Real fear. You can't do this to me, she hissed. This is my life, my money. You'll ruin everything. I stepped closer, my voice firm but calm. No, Victoria. You ruined everything the moment you betrayed your own mother. I would have given you my love, my support, my entire life. But you wanted more. And now, you've taken too much. Her hands shook as she held the papers, her eyes darting back and forth as though she might find some loophole in the ink. But there was none. The truth was there in black and white, undeniable, unshakable. I turned to leave, but before I could step away, she grabbed my arm. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't tell anyone. I'll make it up to you. I'll buy you a house. I'll give you money. Just don't take this from me." I looked down at her hand, gripping my arm, and for the first time, I saw her not as my daughter, but as a stranger, a desperate, greedy stranger who would sell her soul for another dollar. I pulled free from her grip. "It's not yours to keep," I said. "It never was." As I walked back down the driveway, I heard her scream my name, a mix of rage and panic echoing through the air. But I didn't turn back. I couldn't. If I looked at her face again, I might see the little girl I once loved, and I needed to remember the truth. That little girl was gone. The next morning, the bank froze her accounts. The investigator handed her evidence to the authorities. And just like that, Victoria's empire began to crumble. And that was when a phone call started. At first, angry voicemails filled with threats, blaming me for everything. But within days, her voice changed. The rage melted into fear, then into desperation. 3 days after she had thrown me out like trash, my daughter stood on my doorstep. Yes, the same motel door I had been forced to live behind, her makeup smeared, her hands trembling. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, you have to help me. They're going to take everything. I don't know what to do." I stared at her, the weight of her betrayal pressing against the memories of her childhood, the love I once felt, the promises I had made as her mother. She had broken me, abandoned me, stolen from me, and now she wanted me to save her. For a long moment, I said nothing. I only looked into her eyes, and what I saw there wasn't the daughter I had raised. It was a stranger begging for mercy. When I saw Victoria standing there, outside the dingy motel I'd been forced to call home, 1,000 emotions flooded me all at once. Her hair was messy, her once perfect makeup streaked with black tears. She wasn't wearing the designer clothes she loved to flaunt. Just a wrinkled blouse and jeans, like she had thrown on the first thing she could find. She looked small, weak, afraid. "Mom," she whispered, clutching her bag like it was a lifeline. "I need you. I can't do this without you. Please." For a long moment, I simply looked at her. My heart remembered the little girl who used to run into my arms after school, the one who begged me to braid her hair before bedtime, the one who once called me her hero. But my mind reminded me of the woman who had told me to find somewhere else to die. The woman who had thrown me out with $200 while she sat on $33 million. "What is it you think I can do for you, Victoria?" I asked, my voice calm measured. Her eyes darted around nervously before she stepped closer. "They froze my accounts. The investigators are after me. They say I committed fraud. They're going to take everything, Mom. The house, the cars, the money, all of it. And I'll go to prison." I let her words hang in the air, heavy and desperate. She wanted me to swoop in, to save her from the very mess she had created. She still thought I was the same woman she had manipulated all her life, the soft, forgiving mother who would bend until she broke. "You brought this on yourself," I said softly. "You lied. You cheated. You stole from me, from your father's memory, from the family he built. And now you expect me to clean it up for you." Her lip trembled. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I wanted more. I thought I could handle it. But it's out of control now. Please, Mom, you're the only one who can help me." The audacity of it nearly made me laugh. After all she had done, she still believed she could tug on my heartstrings and make me her shield. But then she said something that froze me in place. "There's more," she whispered, lowering her eyes. Dad wasn't who you thought he was. The money, the business, it wasn't clean. If the investigators dig too deep, they'll drag you down too. Don't you get it? We'll both lose everything." Her words sent a chill down my spine. George, my George, the man I had trusted, the man who had lived his life with quiet dignity, could it be true? Could he have been involved in something dark, something illegal? I shook my head. "You're lying. This is another manipulation." But Victoria shook hers. "No, Mom. This time I'm telling the truth. I found documents, transfers, hidden accounts. He was working with people you don't want to mess with. If this comes out, Your inheritance disappears. And worse, you could be implicated. You'll lose your freedom, Mom. Everything you've fought for. My heart thundered in my chest. For a moment, doubt consumed me. What if she was right? What if George had secrets I never knew about? Could his legacy drag me down even as I tried to rise from the ashes? Victoria must have seen the conflict in my eyes because she grabbed my hands and squeezed them tightly. We have to work together, Mom. I know I hurt you. I know I was wrong. But if we don't stick together now, they'll destroy us both. Please, I'm begging you. Her tears soaked my hands. Her voice cracked with desperation. And for a fleeting second, I almost believed her. Almost. But then I remembered the investigator's words, the lawyer's reassurances, the very will that George had written to protect me. George was not a perfect man, but he was not a criminal. If Victoria truly had documents, they were likely stolen, twisted, or fabricated in another one of her schemes. I pulled my hands away from hers. You don't want my help, Victoria. You want my silence. You want me to cover your sins with my reputation, to burn for the fire you started. But I won't do it. Her face crumpled. Mom, please. You don't understand. If you don't stand by me, I'll go down, and I'll take you with me. There it was. The threat. The mask slipped, and beneath the begging child was the ruthless manipulator once again. I stood tall, my voice steady. Do what you must. I am not afraid of the truth. Can you say the same? Her eyes blazed with fury, but behind that fire, I saw the flicker of panic. She had overplayed her hand again. She always did. That night, I made a decision. I would not run from her threats. I would not let fear chain me. Instead, I went directly to the authorities. If there were dark secrets in George's business, I wanted them uncovered. If Victoria had proof, I wanted it investigated. I would rather face the truth head-on than live under the shadow of her lies. The FBI listened carefully as I laid everything out. The forged will, the fraud, the frozen accounts, even Victoria's claim about George. They asked questions, took notes, and assured me that cooperating fully was the only way to protect myself. When I left their office, I felt lighter. Not safe, not yet, but lighter. Because for the first time, I was not running or hiding. I was standing my ground. And as the days passed, the walls closed in on Victoria. Investigators pressed her, documents surfaced, her lavish lifestyle crumbled before her eyes. The daughter who once stood tall on a fortune of millions now found herself cornered, desperate, drowning in the very greed that had lifted her up. And soon, she would face the final truth. She had built her empire on lies, and lies always collapse. The days that followed felt like living inside a storm. Investigators came and went, documents piled up on desks, and every news headline seemed to carry my daughter's name. Heiress under investigation. Fraud allegations rocked Jennings' estate. Millions missing. I watched from the sidelines, quiet, steady, refusing to let myself be dragged into her chaos. And yet, even as the world closed in around Victoria, she never stopped calling me. First, it was angry voicemails filled with curses and venom. Then it was pleading, crying, begging, promising she would change if I just stepped in to help her. And finally, it was silence. I thought that would be the end of it. But one evening, as I sat in the motel with a cup of tea cooling in my hands, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, Victoria stood there again. But this time, she didn't look like my daughter at all. Her once glossy hair hung limp. Her eyes were red and hollow. Her clothes wrinkled and dirty. She looked broken. Mom, she whispered, her voice hoarse. They're going to arrest me tomorrow. Please, please, I don't have anyone else. I stared at her, my chest heavy. There was the moment I had imagined and dreaded all at once. My daughter, once so proud, so arrogant, now reduced to ashes before me. You had someone, I said softly. You had me. You had me all along. And you threw me away. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I know. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I thought money would fix everything. I thought it would make me powerful, untouchable, but destroyed me. Please, Mom, I can't go to prison. I can't survive it. You have to help me. The sound of her cries pierced me, but I did not move to comfort her. Not this time. Too many nights I had cried alone. Too many times I had begged silently for her love, only to be cast aside. Now the roles were reversed, and I realized something painful but true. I could not save her. I can't stop what's coming, Victoria, I said gently. And maybe I shouldn't. Actions have consequences. You've hurt people, you've broken trust, and now you have to face the result of that. She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. But you're my mother. Aren't you supposed to protect me no matter what? A lump formed in my throat, but I forced myself to answer. A mother protects her child from the world when they are innocent. But when that child becomes the danger, when they destroy everything in their path, a mother can't shield them anymore. Love doesn't mean covering up your crimes. Love means telling you the truth, even if it hurts. Her sobs filled the small room, echoing off the walls. I wanted to reach out, to wipe away her tears, to hold her the way I used to. But I stayed rooted in place, because this was the moment she needed to feel the full weight of her choices. The next morning, as promised, they came for her. I stood at the window, watching as the black cars pulled up outside, as men in suits escorted my daughter out in handcuffs. She didn't fight, didn't scream. She just looked up at my window, her eyes meeting mine one last time. There was no anger there, no pride, only a hollow resignation. And then she was gone. In the weeks that followed, the investigations cleared George's name. The whispers of hidden accounts and dark dealings had been nothing more than another desperate attempt by Victoria to twist the truth. His legacy remained intact, and with the real will restored, the estate was rightfully transferred to me. But the victory felt hollow. I had the house, the accounts, the security George had promised me, yet none of it could fill the emptiness left behind. I had won the battle for justice, but I had lost my daughter in the process. Sometimes at night, I still hear her voice as a little girl, calling out for me during storms. Sometimes I still dream of the way she used to laugh, the way her hand fit so perfectly in mine. And when I wake, I am left with the ache of knowing that child is gone, replaced by a woman I could not save. But I also know this: I survived. Against all odds, against betrayal and heartbreak, I rose again. I found a strength I didn't know I had. And in the quiet of my new home, I feel George's presence beside me, as if he is proud of me for standing my ground, for honoring the truth. One day, maybe Victoria will find her own truth. Maybe prison will break her enough to rebuild her into someone better, someone who remembers what love really means. And if that day ever comes, if she ever knocks on my door not with lies or schemes, but with genuine remorse, maybe then I will open my arms to her again. Until then, I carry on, not as the broken widow she tried to make me, but as the woman I was always meant to be: strong, unshaken, unafraid. Because in the end, this was never just a story about money. It was about betrayal and survival, about the cost of greed and the strength of truth. And though it nearly destroyed me, it also set me free.